I'm going to talk about Salvia Divinorum, and I have kind of three mini lectures rather than one big one. First, I'm going to be talking about the indigenous people and their use of this plant. I'm going to talk a little bit about the neurochemistry and the animal research, and I'll finish up with a little of the human subjects research and the things that I find most interesting. I've been studying salvia in one way or another for about 5 years, starting at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, Yale School of Medicine, and some fieldwork in Mexico that was just about a year ago. In short, salvia is unique and mysterious, and it has a lot of potential to tell us about ourselves and our bodies. Probably many of you here know a few things about ayahuasca, the traditional cultures surrounding ayahuasca use. The use of the chemicals DMT and harmine and their relatives were used by specific groups of people. Around the 30s, the use of these chemicals started spreading beyond those groups of people. Around the 60s, they became popular with North American and European backpackers, and so the use of these chemicals has spread throughout the world. But not just the chemicals, the culture surrounding them, the Indians, the natives who use these not just the chemicals, but the plants, the rituals, the songs, the forbidden behavior that is proscribed and prescribed before, during, and after a ceremony. You can go online and get some nice icaros from a variety of places. You know, it's the culture around ayahuasca use has spread along with the chemicals DMT and harmine. Not so much with salvia and psilocybin mushrooms. Lots of people, according to the DEA and a number of other sources, there are many people who use psilocybin mushrooms, but not nearly as many people know about the culture. I mean, where does that even come from? What group of people uses mushrooms traditionally? What group uses salvia? What do they think about that plant? What do they call it? It's not as common, and I don't know why that is. And trying to answer that question is far beyond my pay grade. It's just something that I find very interesting, and that's one of the many reasons that I went down to Mexico to learn from the native healers who use salvia, to get a sense of it. Last year, I was honored to be part of an expedition put together by a nonprofit group called Ska Pastora. You can see their logo, skapastora.org. It's a nonprofit seeking to document the traditional uses of the plant. Ska pastora is a traditional name for the plant Salvia Divinorum. It's a perennial in the mint family, native to the Sierra Mazateca Mountains in southern Mexico, pictured here. The Mazatec use the leaves of the plant as a powerful medicine in their rituals. People seek their healers, their curanderos, in order to treat a variety of spiritual ailments like depression and addiction, as well as physical ailments, particularly gastrointestinal disorders. The patients, they have to maintain a strict set of behavioral and dietary guidelines before meeting with the plant. The most striking of them is that you're supposed to abstain from all sexual activity for 40 days before the ritual. And there's two purposes for this. One, you need to purify your body and spirit. And two, it really helps to keep away curious but perhaps insensitive foreigners. It's said that if you don't adhere to these guidelines, it can lead to bad luck, becoming more susceptible to curses from brujos or sorcerers, and it can even lead to madness if you don't follow these prescriptions. Bringing tourists into a community like the Mazatec, it's a double-edged sword. It brings in money, which is good, but it also brings in people who may not be as respectful as we would like. During the traditional salvia ceremony, you chew pairs of fresh leaves. These leaves are first blessed and cleansed with prayers and copal smoke, and then you either chew the leaves or you can make a water infusion out of the leaves and drink it. This is in contrast to non-traditional use in this country in Western Europe, where it's usually smoked, or an extract of the leaves is smoked. The healers in Mexico would say that that is sacrilegious, that's a horrible idea. Why would you burn your god alive? So you chew the leaves instead. at night in near or total darkness before an altar like this one that mixes native and Catholic imagery. They say that the salvia spirit is timid like a deer, and bright lights and loud noises scare her away. So you have to be very still and very quiet, and you allow her to come. The ritual is accompanied by the use of cacao beans, which is the currency of the spirits. It's accompanied by the use of San Pedro, which for this group is not a cactus. It's a green powder made from crushed tobacco leaves. So they use tobacco in their rituals, but they don't smoke it. It's in a different way than I've ever seen before. Of course, the copal resin, and the most powerful tool of all in the Mazatec arsenal is the egg. Fertilized eggs they're sponges to suck in bad energy, bad air. Once you've been purified, once the space has been purified, you set an intention. The ritual itself lasts about 3 hours, give or take. And it's the clients really have to actively participate. You don't just kind of take your salvia and lay down and have an experience. You have to sing, you have to chant, you have to explain what is going on. And doing so, actively participating in the experience, changes and alters the experience, and it builds on itself. To the Mazatec, salvia is the embodiment of the Virgin Mary. And you need to speak with her or St. Peter, who is the gatekeeper to heaven, and then and only then, perhaps, will you be permitted to speak with Jesus. When you have these experiences with salvia, there's a lot of people report flying and floating and traveling through space, being taken to other locations, particularly if you're looking for someone or something that is lost. The saints will take you to that person and show you where they are and how they're doing. And you can receive knowledge from Jesus, Mary, St. Peter, and the others as to the cause of and cures for particular diseases. There's a whole lot that we don't know about the traditional use of salvia. It's one of the reasons I'm so interested in it. The name Schka pastora roughly translates to leaves of the shepherdess. You can also call the plant Yerba de Maria, the herb of Mary. One of the illnesses that salvia is particularly indicated for is healing something that the translation is swollen belly or sheep's belly. The Virgin Mary, of course, is a post-conquest idea. Sheep as well. Sheep are not native to Mexico. Shepherdesses are not native to Mexico. Everything that we know about this plant, everything, is post-Spanish conquest. What did they used to call this plant? What gods or goddesses inhabited the plant? What kind of prayers did you speak to it? We don't know any of that. We're not even sure where this plant came from. Some of the healers that I spoke with say that the plant has been growing in this mountain valley since before there were people. Other people say that the people came first and the plant came later. What we do know is that pretty much every area that is growing salvia, it was put there on purpose by humans in this country, in Mexico, anywhere. It's a cultigen. It almost never sets seed naturally. It doesn't flower very often. When it does set seed, the seeds aren't very viable. And just about everything that we know of is a cutting that was introduced and cultivated on purpose by humans. Recently, they did a very smart DNA analysis. There's about 1,000 salvia species in the world, I should mention. Salvia Divinorum is one of many, and they wanted to see where to fit salvia genetically. So the closest living relative to Salvia Divinorum is called Salvia venulosa, and that's endemic to a very small region in the Colombian Andes. And as far as I could tell with my limited Google abilities, there's no reports of medicinal or shamanic use of this salvia in Colombia. How did it get from Mexico to Colombia? It's hypothesized that these two plants have a common ancestor from Mexico, so it is originally a Mexican plant. But we have no idea what this common ancestor is. No one's ever encountered it. So we don't know what this plant is. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what people used to call it, or how people used to talk to it. We do know a few things about the chemistry and pharmacology of the plant, the things that we can figure out now in the present. The history of it is a mystery. I like mysteries. In the present of it, we can learn a few things. Most of the research done on salvia in the present has been in vitro or with rodents. A little bit of human and non-human primate research as well. It's mostly been in rats and mice. It's a tree. We don't know what, other than the Virgin Mary, we don't know what to call the plant anymore. And it's kind of sad, but that's very interesting. We know that the leaves of the plant contain about a dozen unique chemicals that aren't found in any other plant. The most potent one is salvinorin A, which is a potent and selective kappa opioid receptor agonist. When you inhale salvinorin A, you need about 1 milligram to produce profound alterations in consciousness. 1 milligram. This makes this the most potent naturally occurring chemical. It's about 20 times as potent as psilocybin, and it's about half as potent as LSD, which is not naturally occurring. It is a selective agonist of the kappa opioid receptor. And as far as we know, it's the only naturally occurring selective agonist of the kappa opioid receptor. This graph shows mean percent inhibition of radioligand binding to 50 cloned human receptors and transporters for LSD in red and salvinorin A in yellow. And we see from this graph that salvinorin A only binds to the kappa opioid receptor. It only has one elevated graph. LSD, in contrast, binds to about 20 different receptors and transporters, and it doesn't affect the kappa receptor whatsoever. This is true of LSD, psilocybin, mescaline, all of these things. They're serotonin 2A agonists, and they don't affect kappa. Salvinorin A affects kappa, does not affect serotonin. These are operating on completely different pathways, which is another reason why it's so interesting, because there is quite literally nothing else even remotely like it. Morphine is the typical mu opioid agonist. We have mu, delta, and kappa opioid receptors, possibly some others, but that's an area of some debate. So a mu opioid agonist leads to analgesia, so you don't feel pain, and it also leads to euphoria and compulsive use and addiction. Morphine, cocaine, even nicotine, any of these rewarding drugs, they modulate the activity of the mesolimbic dopamine system, which is pictured here. It's called the reward circuitry. This brain circuit is responsible for emotion, motivation, mood, and all of the rewarding effects that we get from drugs and food and sex. You get an increase of dopamine in the reward circuit, and it feels good, and you want to do more of that. A drug of abuse like morphine kind of hijacks this system by increasing dopamine levels much quicker and to a much greater extent than any naturally occurring non-drug, naturally occurring reward. And that leads to euphoria and compulsive use and addiction and all sorts of troublesome things. Over time, the use of a drug of abuse, it alters the reward circuitry, and a particular thing I've started learning a lot about called interoception. So at any given time, our bodies are giving off hundreds of different signals from our muscles and our toes and our lungs and our skin, and all of these things are orientation in space and time, whether I'm standing or sitting down. All of these signals come up into the brain where they're collected in the insula, which is pictured here in yellow. Over time, drugs of abuse cause the insula to devalue things that used to be rewarding. They're not pleasurable anymore. You used to have fun listening to music and going out with friends, but now those aren't fun anymore. Those don't release dopamine. But morphine, that releases dopamine. It's the only thing that the drug of abuse becomes the only thing that activates the pleasure centers and the reward circuitry of your brain. And if that wasn't bad enough, the unpleasant signals are enhanced. All the aches and pains and discomforts in your body, those become amplified. So someone who's in the throes of addiction, they feel bad stuff all the time, and they feel good stuff never, unless it's the drug. So when you say, to the extent that we are our brains, or to the extent that our brains generate consciousness, someone who's addicted, they are quite literally not the same person that they used to be, because their sense of how they interact with the world to escape from pain and to seek pleasure is completely changed. That's for a a mu agonist, or something that increases dopamine levels. Kappa agonists, in contrast, they do the exact opposite. They reduce dopamine levels in the same brain circuit. A kappa agonist causes dysphoria, which it's not quite uncontrollable sadness and weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's more of a dissociation from the warmth and familiarity of your body and your human connections. One of the subjects that I gave salvia to, he said that he could experience everyone and everything in the room, but it was as if he was looking through a long tunnel or like a cardboard tube, that everything was just away a little bit. So salvinorin A does this. It reduces dopamine levels, particularly in the striatum and the nucleus accumbens. At low doses, this leads to anti-addiction effects, at least in animals. At higher doses, it can also lead to sedation, aversion, amotivation, some more negative effects that we're not looking for. But in the animal literature, there's a lot of interest in the kappa receptor system, salvinorin A, or more often than not, synthetic analogs that are created from salvinorin A as potential novel treatments for addiction, because we need novel treatments for addiction desperately. And so analogs that are kappa agonists are a promising avenue of research. So, as I mentioned, I think that salvinorin disrupts the insula. We do know that synthetic kappa agonists bind to the human insula with high affinity, and with higher affinity than the mu and delta opioid agonists do. And we know that salvinorin produces profound alterations in body ownership and tactile and vestibular hallucinations. You feel like you're flying, going through space, etc. We think that the insula plays a role in self-awareness, particularly your awareness of your internal body states, like I mentioned. So probably one of the ways that salvinorin A affects consciousness, or that chewing the leaves of salvia as part of a ritual allows you to fly up to the mountaintop and speak with Jesus, is through its effects on the insula. Another piece of the puzzle is the claustrum, which is right next to the insula and the putamen. It's kind of in between this reward circuitry and your cortex. It's like right in the middle there. The claustrum has the highest density of kappa receptors in the entire brain, and it has a very low density of the delta and mu opioid receptors, so it's almost as if it's specific to salvia. And we're not really sure what the claustrum does, but probably, maybe, it's been called the conductor of consciousness. It was dubbed that by Francis Crick, who was a scientist of some note. It's thought to, this was the last paper that he ever wrote. He wanted to understand consciousness, and he thought maybe the claustrum has something to do with it, to kind of synchronize or harmonize all of the different parts of the brain that create different aspects of conscious experience. So salvinorin A probably alters the claustrum, and it probably alters the insula, and that's what leads to these unusual experiences, let's say. I've been involved in 2 different projects where we've given salvia to people. The first one was at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, where I had people smoke enhanced extracts of salvia leaf. And the second one that just finished up at Yale, we had people vaporize pure salvinorin A. What we find is that the experience is very short. Anytime that you smoke a substance, it will affect you much quicker and for a much shorter time period than if you are to take the substance orally. In salvia, it lasts maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and it's a very intense experience. It leads to visual hallucinations, but that's not really the primary effect. Really, the main effect of salvia that I've come across is tactile hallucinations. Things are happening in your body. Things are happening with movement. It leads to a kind of synesthesia that I've never seen before in the literature. A synesthesia is when 2 or more sensory channels mix, and the most commonly reported synesthesia is when you take LSD and you can see sounds and hear colors, so it's an audio and visual mixing. Salvia doesn't do that one, though. Salvia does what did I call it? I called it a visual and tactile synesthesia. So you see things and feel them in your body. Or one of my subjects said that he could see everything that was going on in the room, but he could see it through his skin, not through his eyes. And recently, a systematic review of the literature discussed every kind of synesthesia known to science, and visual tactile synesthesia is extremely rare, but salvia produces it pretty reliably. I don't have any statistics to back that up, but it's a very common experience. And it leads to a distorted sense of your body. A lot of people say that I don't know where my body ends and this podium begins, or something like that. Or they would say, I was the couch, or I just didn't have a body at all, and I was just a consciousness floating through space. It's that this is happening, like this is real, and all that other stuff that I thought was real isn't real anymore. This is real. So it alters your sense of reality, of what is actually going on. When you take salvia in a traditional context, or you smoke it, or you inhale salvinorin A in a laboratory context, it alters consciousness, clearly. Some of that has overlap with more traditional drugs like LSD. I mean, both drugs, you have kind of a kaleidoscopic 2D or 3D visual images. You feel that you have a loss of control over the experience. You'll have what they call psychotomimetic symptoms, which are that they mimic the hallucinations and delusions and paranoia of psychosis. And you can have mystical experiences. And both of these substances, there are no known physiological dependence or addiction properties. But there's a lot of differences too. As I mentioned, salvinorin A has this particular kind of synesthesia and body ownership. It does stuff to your body in a way that I haven't read about in the LSD literature. LSD is much more visual, like open-eyed visual illusions and distortions. There's been a lot of the earlier research on LSD was in creativity, of course, psychotherapy. I'm not saying that salvinorin A can't be used for creativity or psychotherapy, but no one's written about it yet. No one's done the work there. So there's some overlap and there's some differences. But as I mentioned, these two drugs are completely different pharmacologically. So that's, if I'm trying to figure out what the serotonin system does, I might look over on the LSD column. If I'm trying to figure out what the kappa opioid receptor system does, I might look over at the salvinorin A column. But what about that stuff in the middle? These things, mystical experiences, can happen from a serotonin agonist, a kappa agonist, an NMDA antagonist, and obviously without taking drugs at all, you can have a mystical experience. So these things, they're kind of non-specific sequelae of altered consciousness that is particularly interesting to me. To kind of put it into context, when I said that salvinorin A is the most potent psychedelic we know of, it's active at around 1 milligram. But when you inhale, if you have a 1 milligram of salvinorin A and you inhale it, some of it's lost to burning, some of it goes into the room, some of it goes into your lungs but isn't absorbed into your blood, some of it goes into your blood and isn't absorbed into your brain. There was a study that just came out. It's flawed, but the premise of the study was that about 5% of the salvinorin A from the leaf makes it into the smoke. So if I'm giving a subject 1,000 micrograms, maybe 5% of that actually reaches their brain, maybe less. That's very small, and yet it does very big things. And that's probably the number one thing that interests me about the chemical, is that it changes everything you know to be true. My subjects, they said that the most profound thing that they were able to take away from the study was that everything that you know at the flip of a switch is changed. And that's, in and of itself, can be useful. I haven't had anyone talking about, in my studies, I haven't had anyone probably anyway, have a mystical experience, although we didn't specifically test for it. I think that's set and setting. Hopkins has a much better setup. But whether or not you have experiences of healing or reliving childhood memories or all these pleasant, nice things, just the fact that everything that you take for granted about what is solid and where your body is and isn't, all of this stuff can just change at the drop of a hat. And that in and of itself, so my subjects have told me, can be useful. So again, I want to thank Ska Pastora. You can go to skapastora.org. Hopefully we'll have a documentary coming out pretty soon. I started doing my research at ITP. That was partly funded by MAPS. I continued doing some research at Yale, and now I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing either.
What temperature does salvia vaporize at?
The short answer is I don't remember, but it's different than THC. So the first study that they did at Yale, they were using a volcano. So it's a commercial off-the-shelf cannabis vaporizer, and that worked very badly. So then they took a cue from the Hopkins team and they kind of custom built their own little glassware thing, and that works much better. So it's a higher temperature, and with a commercial vaporizer, it just takes a long time to heat it up, and it doesn't even necessarily heat it to the high enough. So it's higher than THC, I don't remember the number. The natives who use salvia, is that similar or different from research subjects who smoke salvinorin A? A lot of the interviews, I am anxiously awaiting the transcripts because I don't know any Mazatec, and I know enough Spanish to order a meal, and that's hard. So I'm sure I missed a lot of what we talked about for the 2 weeks I was down there, but in kind of broad general categories, I think that they're pretty similar. But I think too that the Mazatecs say that salvia and mushrooms, they're used in the same rituals, and they say they take you to the same places. Whereas pharmacologically, and the subjects, that a number of subjects in my studies, they've used salvia and also used mushrooms, and so I would ask them, do you think that they're similar? And my subjects would absolutely say, no, not at all. So it's interesting that there's at least some differences there.
Did you also ask them if they found it similar to marijuana?
Yeah, so I asked all my subjects just kind of open-ended, if you had to say this is like something, what would you say it is most like? And by far the most common answer was nothing. I can't compare it to anything. And so I would push them and I'd say, well, if you really had to compare it to something, what would it be? And the second most common answer was dreaming. It's like being in a lucid dream.
Is there any research on or hypothesis on how salvia affects the default mode network?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool research going on about the default mode network, which the idea, a lot of the EEG stuff is above my head, but from what I understand, that's kind of the basic sense of who we are, like the kind of ego consciousness and the default way that we interact with ourselves in the world. And something like psilocybin really dampens down that network so that it changes kind of how you interact with yourself. Salvia, we're analyzing our EEG results now, so we can get a tentative answer to that when the article comes out hopefully by the end of the year. But to really look at DMN activity, you need to do fMRI or PET, and we just don't have that.
When you do the drug by chewing the plant, does it last longer than when you smoke it?
Yeah, it comes on slower, maybe over the course of 15 minutes, and the experience lasts maybe 2 hours, which is very different than smoking it, and it's 20 minutes, if even that. So it's a slower and more drawn-out experience, so you can kind of bring back a little bit more that way.
Why are we calling it psychedelic?
That's an argument I've been having for some years now. For a lot of people, psychedelic can be defined as a 5-HT2A agonist, and if it's not a 2A agonist, it's not a psychedelic. I think that's I guess that's one truth coming from a pharmacological perspective, but for me, a psychedelic is an experience. You don't have to take any drug and you can have a psychedelic experience. You can take salvia 100 times and not have a psychedelic experience. So for me, it's an experience that someone can have, and salvia can increase the likelihood of someone having a psychedelic experience. So can psilocybin or meditation or sensory deprivation or all sorts of things. So it can facilitate these things, sometimes at least.
Are the reports of terror due to a slower onset with an oral route of administration? And does that change the likelihood to want to pursue the experience once again?
Let's see. I asked everyone if they would want to do salvia again after being in my study, and most of them said, and maybe, I guess. I mean, they were kind of on the fence about it, but most people said One of the items in the hallucinogen rating scale is how often would you like to repeat this experience, and you give a time frame, and most people said within a month. I asked them, and then I met them again after 2 months, and I said, so have you done any drugs since we last met? And only 2 people out of 30 had used salvia in that time period, even though most people said they would, or that they would like to. One person was specifically waiting until the follow-up interview was done in order to go get some. But whenever you're looking at surveys or YouTube videos or things like that, you have to keep in mind that we don't know what they were actually using. Probably it's salvia, but you don't know. I don't really know what Miley Cyrus was using in her video. And you don't know the set and setting. You don't know other drugs that they might have taken off camera. You don't know their personal or family history of mental illness. You don't know what was going on the other side of the camera. Maybe there were people running around in masks or something that would evoke terror in anyone. So it's really hard to draw conclusions. But the fact that all of it, like everything's fine, and then 2 seconds later, everything is chaotic and different, and I don't even have feet anymore, that can be scary if you're not used to those things.
You spoke earlier about concoction being made to drink or chewing the leaves, but the studies are all done with smoking?
Because it's easier. There were 2 studies that tried other routes. There was a sublingual study where they gave people pure salvinorin A under the tongue to be absorbed in the mouth. No one had any effects on any dose. The first study ever to give salvinorin A to humans, he tried a number of things. He put salvinorin A in capsules and had people just swallow them. He had salvinorin A in a liquid suspension that he had put into a spray bottle to kind of spray in your mouth, and of course the smoking. And it doesn't seem to be absorbed in the stomach. And I'll say that there are inconsistent results as to how well it is absorbed in the mouth. But one thing that we know is that it's really easy to absorb it through the lungs.
What would your vision be of how it could be used?
2 things come to mind. I think one of the most obvious things that's come out of the research that I've done is smoking is really not the way to go. I don't know what is. I don't know what is the correct answer, but I don't think smoking is the correct answer, because by the time you figure out what's happening, it's over. The other point I want to make is that there are no federal laws regarding salvia, but there are state-by-state laws. In Connecticut, where I'm currently living, it's illegal to sell or possess. In California, where I started my research, it's illegal to sell to minors, but not adults. I don't know what it is in New York, so I certainly don't want to advocate anyone breaking any laws. I'm not condoning any kinds of activities, but learning more about the traditions and learning more about your intention and your set and setting, these are important for any activities that we undertake.
Can you imagine how it could be used really positively and constructively, either therapeutically?
The first reports about therapeutic use of salvia came out of Australia, and that it has really good antidepressant properties. And so and this started out that a woman had intractable depression, didn't respond to any medication, any kind of psychotherapy. And then she started chewing salvia leaves, and just a little bit, like she didn't even feel an effect, or maybe just kind of a little bit of an effect, so like a threshold dose. And she did that, I think, twice a week, and her depression went away. And the psychiatrist was intrigued by this, so he started, when he had other clients with intractable depression, he would suggest this, and he had a lot of good reports. He did some depression ratings before and after. It wasn't long after that Australia became the first country to outlaw salvia. So there's some indication, at least there's a few case reports that it can have some antidepressant effects. And like I was saying, the animal literature is all about drug addiction. I haven't heard any. There was a person we interviewed in Mexico. I haven't had anyone from the Western way of doing salvia to talk about addiction potential, but the animals say that there's some potential there.
Thank you, Peter.